Okay.
There you go.
I didn't hit the button good enough, I guess. All right. Well, tonight we have Eric James Pittman with us. Eric is a renowned photographer and conservationist from Esquimalt, British Columbia. He is celebrated for his profound knowledge of hummingbirds and has devoted years to studying and documenting these vibrant creatures, captivating audiences worldwide through his website, hummingbirdsuppclose.com. Eric's meticulous work with his backyard webcam has provided rare insights into the nesting habits of hummingbirds and has earned him collaborations with BBC Wildlife Films, Netflix, CBC, which I'm guessing is the Canadian Broadcasting Company, Eric.
That's correct. It's not the Christmas bird count.
Gotcha. as well as others. Eric's award-winning documentary, The Bird in My Backyard, showcases his extraordinary journey with Anna's hummingbirds, which is he's going to talk about quite a bit with us this evening, and offers viewers a glimpse into the hidden lives of these magnificent creatures. Through his compelling storytelling and dedication to conservation, he continues to inspire and educate, emphasizing the importance of protecting our natural world. So, Eric, with that, welcome, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Greg. Certainly appreciate everybody showing up to have a look at my videos and listen to what I've got to say. This is my favorite thing in the world to do. So thank you all very much for being here. As Greg alluded to there, I have been doing hummingbird work for quite a while, about 17 years. And I've filmed about somewhere around about 130 or 135 hummingbird nests from egg to end. I've kind of lost count. I'm going to show you some highlights today, and I'm going to go through a few things. And at some point when we are finished some of the videos, I'll open it up for discussion. You can ask me anything you want about hummingbirds, except the stuff that everybody knows, like what's the sugar to water ratio. I don't want to talk about things like that, but I will tell you about little obscure things. Anyway, I'm going to start off with a video here that is one of my favorites. And this illustrates perfectly hummingbirds, mother hummingbirds, and how they take care of their youngs. This is a bird that I was filming called Crystal. And when she makes her appearance, here she is. You will see that she's an expert at taking care of her nest. And this is one of those rare moments when you actually get to see a hummingbird fighting a caterpillar. Her chicks were just hatched a few days before, and she's very dedicated to making sure that nothing interrupts her nest or makes any kind of a fuss about things. One of the great things about doing hummingbird work is that I have been able to find quite a few different things that people don't quite know about. And I've filmed so many birds, I've been able to do a lot of documentation about birds and how the development of the hummingbird works. So in this little video here, you're going to see little hummingbirds that have just hatched. This is just out of the egg. And they're driven by instinct. So right away, as soon as they sense anything above them, they stick their beaks skyward. And if the mother came along, she would feed them at that point. I'm going to go back to another video here. The first feeding is always really exciting. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to go to hatching because I love hatching videos. This is a bird I call Fluff, and I followed her through 6 nests, and her chicks are just hatching out of the eggs as I'm filming. They're so tiny. Those eggs are about the size of a Tic Tac. The one thing that is very much of a mystery to me is how these birds know how to do this stuff. They, when the mother hummingbird sees her chicks for the first time, she knows that she has to put her beak down their throat and give them some food. And it's amazing to me that they don't actually hurt their birds. They would appear to be quite fragile. And remember how tiny they are. Remember that that chick would fit into a tic tac. It's almost inconceivable to imagine how small the chicks are when you see them full screen on your computer or TV. So these chicks are in this video about 4 days old. I'm going to go back to the first time that Fluff sees her chick. Her chick is really just hatched out of out of the egg, and it's been able to get its head out. And Fluff is going to come along for the first time, and we'll see how the chick reacts. The chick knows to move a little bit. It feels a little bit of puff on it on the back. Those little tail feathers or back feathers that you see there serve as sensors for the little chicks. The chicks feel that vibration from the disturbed air when the mom comes in, and then they know that they should stick their heads up and get fed. Those are the first feathers that they get, and they actually are like external sensors. And this is the first time that Fluff has fed these chicks. And she's giving them a little bit of sugar water. So that really tells you a bit about the importance of making sure that your hummingbird feeders are clean, because you might be supporting a little life like this. And if these little lives don't have a lot of resistance at this point to the world. I'm going to show you another video here. This is one that I was able to film this year or last year, and you can just see the egg starting to crack. The chick is starting to poke at it with its beak to poke that little hole and to make it bigger. And you can see where the chick is contacting the nest from the inside, and you can see the little dark movements of the chick. And this continued for about an hour, and there's another chick that's already hatched out there. That's the one you see wiggling. But that egg took about an hour for that chick to break free from that egg. Now, we don't only just get Anna's hummingbirds up here. We also get Rufus hummingbirds. So I'm going to go to Miss Rufus, who this is the first time Miss Rufus found her chick out of the egg. Rufus hummingbirds fly from Mexico all the way to the Pacific Northwest coast, and they nest in the tall old growth forest and some of the other tall trees around here. They're extremely different than Anna's hummingbirds in their behavior. Anna's hummingbirds are resident birds here in Victoria, and so they're quite loud about making sure that people know where their territory is. They don't want intruders. But migratory hummingbirds are the quietest birds you'll ever find because they're coming into someone else's territory and they don't want you to find it. So they come up here and they nest very, very quietly. Now, when a hummingbird builds a nest, it takes about 10 days or so. And it takes about 400 visits to do that. This is Sunshine coming in to build a nest in my pear tree in my backyard. And she's only just got a little bit of things going on for her. There's just a little start of a nest there. And she brings in little pieces of lichen and moss and starts to stack things together. But the first thing she brings in is spider web. And she'll bring in spider web and lay it down and use that as a bit of an adherent to what it is that she's building. That spider web you can see all around the base of the nest is woven right through the nest, and it holds a lot of material together. And it takes her about 10 days to build the nest to get it to the point where she's ready to lay eggs in it. Now, things don't always go as planned. This is another bird that is just making the best of the nest that she's had destroyed during a rainstorm. The lower half of that nest was the beginning of her nest, and she was sitting on it. Well, sorry, she wasn't sitting on it. She was getting ready to lay her eggs, and we had a lot of rain, and it almost destroyed her nest. And she's returned, surprisingly, to rebuild the nest. And they get very dedicated when they decide that this is an area that they want to build a nest in. So here it is 3 days later, and she's got a place to lay her eggs. Now, this particular hummingbird was called Snowy, and I called her Snowy for a good reason, because it was snowing. And you wouldn't think that a hummingbird would be able to survive in snow, but they actually do quite well. Here was Snowy on the day that her chicks hatched. She just came back and tucked herself underneath there, and she gets in and she makes sure that her chicks are okay and starts to feed them. I wasn't sure they were hatched until she started to feed them. This was her in the morning when I first came to film her nest. I wasn't sure she was still alive. It was about 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. It's February 13th, 2021. But she digs out of the snow and goes off to get some food. I think at this point, what she got was food uh, from a feeder. Luckily, the snow in our area doesn't last that long, usually only about a week or so. But on this particular day, it got a little bit warmer. And you can see her chick as some of the snow melted away there. So I do see odd things when I'm filming hummingbirds. I, I get calls about different birds in different parts of the province, sometimes rare birds like leucistic hummingbirds. Those are awfully fun to film. This is almost an albino, but it's got a little bit of pigmentation, so it's what you'd call a leucistic hummingbird. And here's another one that I found, which is, I called it tangerine because of the slight orange color to it. It was a really beautiful little bird. One of the most unique birds I've found, though, was a bird I call Bailey. This was the first film of Bailey that I took, and you can see that her nest is kind of not put together well, but she's a really good flyer. You can see her hovering and feeding her chick, and her chick is only a few days old. It's probably 3 or 4 days old, and she's doing quite a, by flying and feeding a chick, that's pretty hard to do. But something wasn't quite right, and I wasn't sure what it was. And it wasn't until she started feeding from the other side that I was able to tell what was wrong. If you look closely, you'll see that Bailey has a broken leg. You can see the leg on her left there. I don't know what the problem was. I don't know why it was broken, but it didn't slow her down at all. She went out and took care of that chick. She built nests, and she was able to raise this chick to fledging and then feed it beyond there. Here's a good look at Bailey's leg. You can see that it's broken almost at a 90-degree angle, but you can still use it just to rub herself, but she can't really scratch. And as you know, hummingbirds have to preen to keep their feathers clean enough to fly. And that kind of presents a problem because she can only use one leg. Now I found Bailey doing this really interesting flying pattern that I hadn't seen with another bird. It was a downwards, backwards spiral. You can see how she's losing altitude and going backwards and spinning. I wasn't sure why she was doing that, and it was hard to film through the branches, but I've never seen a bird do a backward spin like that. And I wasn't sure what it was that she was doing until I was able to capture it a little bit better. And what she was actually doing was scratching with her good leg. But what that did is it made her spin in a backwards downward spiral. And that was all part of what happened, one of her adaptations, as she was basically handicapped with only one leg. Now, it's pretty hard for a hummingbird to build a nest with one leg. Usually it takes two legs and a beak, and it's still really hard to build a nest. But that didn't stop Bailey. She had another nest after her little chick fledged away. Here she is, just as she's starting another nest, and she's using that little nib on a branch like a crutch. So she uses that and she puts down some spider web and brings in some fluff and does what she can to build that nest. And it wasn't too long, that nest didn't survive. The eggs got blown out, and then a few months later, I found her building another nest. And you can see how she uses her wing to balance herself and get a bit of support while she uses her leg, her good leg and beak to put things in place. Unfortunately, that nest didn't make it either. And I found I found her egg at the bottom of the tree the next day. You can see how small that is compared to my fingertip. Like I said, it's like a tic tac or a small pill. But that doesn't stop hummingbirds. They still do what they do. They are kind of aggressive. And one of the things that I've found, I think before I go there, I'm going to go to some of the fledglings. It's always a great day when I get to watch hummingbirds fledge, because by the time I get to the fledge point, I've been watching that nest for 5 or 6 weeks, and only about half of the nests make it. They fall prey to all kinds of different things. You can get a squirrel to run over the nest and it'll just knock it off. Sometimes another bird will come in and pick the eggs out or pull the chicks out. All kinds of things happen. But when they make it, it's a wonderful thing to see. And sometimes it's kind of comical too, because you can just see their little brains clicking into place and they sort of figure out what to do. And then they go off to another part of the tree. And the sibling is often left there trying to figure out what just happened. Because all of their lives they've been sitting beside this other bird and now it's gone. What should I do? And sometimes after they've fledged, they'll come back. This is a few hours after that chick fledged, but its sibling hadn't gotten out of the nest. And so this one decided to come back. And I think it's kind of cute when you see a little hummingbird chick coming back to the nest, and it's obviously having a hard time, but it wants to go back to where it knows it's safe and sound and it's going to get fed. But it's almost like it's pushing its sibling out, telling it to go. enjoy its life too. It's your turn to fly away now. And they both did, and they had a good time at it. One of the strangest things that I found about hummingbirds, yeah, there we go. That one just got out of there. One of the strangest things about hummingbirds is that they are so aggressive. And when I've been filming the chicks after they've fledged, I've been surprised at how many times they get attacked by other hummingbirds. And it comes out of the blue at them sometimes. There you go. And I wondered, why do these hummingbirds attack the chicks? And it took me a long time to figure out, but this chick that attacked the other one is probably from the brood before it. You can see that this is not a mature male, but you can see the feathers coming in its chin. They're just starting to turn into that mature red color for the males. And I believe this is the younger brood asserting its territory over the new brood. And it does take them a while to uh, settle out the pecking order. But in most cases, even the one that gets picked on fights back. This is another example of that. This is a little chick. I called it Shine, that I was following quite closely. And unbeknownst to me, the sibling came back and started chirping off at her, the sibling from the nest before. And again, you can see that it's um, a juvenile male by the feather pattern. And these fights can go on for quite a while, a few days, until somebody asserts dominance. But there you can see even the one that was being bullied decided to come around and be a little bit more aggressive. So with the hummingbirds, it's often really satisfying when you find them, the chicks in the forest being fed by the mother, because it's such a wonderful time to they it's nice to see that they get their independence. They do so many things by instinct. It's hard to imagine all all the things they do because there's so many um, things that are hard for a bird to understand. Like, how does a bird learn how to feed? Well, they often learn how to they learn how to feed by watching the other by watching the humming by watching their mother. But one thing I've been able to do, let me find this. I'm going to go back to that one later. There's a few things that hummingbirds really like. If you're able to put up a water fountain or a sprinkler in your yard, they really do like taking showers. I have a uh, little river in my porch area that they often take a shower at. But in this case, this was a rufous hummingbird on a hot August day, and it just came in and sat under the sprinkler for about half an hour. That bird must have been really hot, but doing it enjoyed taking a shower a lot. And some birds actually like to eat ashes. This was a surprise to me. But the hummingbirds will often get ashes out of the fire pits. And I'm told that this gives them some calcium. I'm not exactly sure, but I found quite a few birds taking getting some ashes from this particular fire pit. So as I was saying prior, the hummingbirds learn by example. So often a mother hummingbird comes and shows a little chick what to do. This was the chick that came out of that egg that you saw hatching at the beginning of the of my presentation. And it's in my yard, so I've decided to give it some flowers. There are some flowers uh, close by where this bird is, but it's not a very good flyer yet. So I had put some flowers out for it, and I'd put some sugar water on it, and this is its mother coming around. That's Solo. That's the other bird that lives in my backyard. And it ate some from the flowers just in front of the little chick, just to show it what to do. And in just a little while, whenever I'd come up with those flowers, this little chick would start to eat. So it's kind of nice when you can just help a little bird. Doesn't mean a lot to the world of birds, but it sure means a lot to that bird. It's just a little bit easier for it. And the next day, that bird was eating from the flower plants right next to it there. It had figured it out. There's little Avro getting fed by Solo again. Now, hummingbirds don't usually congregate together. They do have a society. They have the male that tends to be the uh, sort of get a harem going almost. The way it seems to work is that the males have a territory and they do their singing, and the females come in and then they will nest in an area, and the males will mate with them and have their chicks. But they don't really get together all that much. The times when they do get together, it's usually to fight off an owl or some similar predator. On this particular day that I came into the forest, I literally couldn't ignore all the hummingbird calls I was hearing. So when I got over to where they were, there was about 7 or 8 hummingbirds surrounding this little saw-whet owl. And the owl just looked at them and didn't care, but the hummingbirds were having a field day trying to scare it out of there. Now, a saw-whet owl is only about the size of a robin, but even with larger owls, like this barred owl, they still come around and they'll do what they can to get rid of that predator in the forest. I really enjoy filming hummingbirds closely, which is why I've sort of branded myself as Hummingbirds Up Close. I just find that seeing the unseeable with with a camera, the things that you can't see with the human eye, I just find those sort of things fascinating. And I get a lot of pleasure out of just seeing those little delicate moments when hummingbirds are doing what they normally do, but it's usually invisible. And hummingbirds do have fun. They like to play in the water. Here's a new fledgling just out discovering the fountain. It's just figuring out how to wash itself and figuring out that it likes water. This is probably the first time it was at our fountain. And in just a moment, you'll see it gets joined by its sibling. There it is. And siblings, like all siblings, really does tend to bully it. They tend to have a little bit of fun, and it pushed its sibling into the water. Now it just wants to sit on its beak. And it pushes him into the water. I don't think it was very aggressive. I think it was more of a teasing sort of thing, and I've seen this behavior before, where they will push each other off a branch, but get right back on it. So has anybody got any questions at this point? Is there anything that you would like to particularly see? I can't hear
Eric, I have a
anybody.
Eric, I have a
Yes,
question.
sure.
How long between broods for these hummingbirds?
Not long at all. In fact, sometimes they overlap. The first bird, this is why I found 6 nests in my yard from one bird to be with the first one that I filmed. Sugarbird, Sweetie Bird was the first bird in my yard that I started to film, and she was building a nest while her chicks were still in the nest, and she was still feeding them. But the day that the chicks fledged, she was sitting on eggs. So in some cases, it's not very long, but they don't necessarily all do that. It's sort of depends on, I guess it depends on the bird. It depends on the environment and the availability of food and the availability of um, all the nesting material. Because it is quite, I mean, it takes a lot to do it, but little Sweetie Bird, she just kept going at it. I'll find, this is Sweetie Bird Nest 2.
So I had a follow-up question to that, and I think you've
Sure.
kind of answered part of my follow-up
Yeah.
because obviously if one bird, excuse me, one bird is still feeding chicks, uh, but she's sitting on a nest, then she made a new nest. But do they ever reuse a nest? I'm wondering.
So not usually. They will, sometimes they take the same location, but they will tend to rebuild a nest on top of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, so I've never seen one actually go back into a nest without renovations. And they may like a spot. So sometimes what you'll find is one nest buried under another nest. I'm trying to think of an example here for you because um, I know that I do have one, but I'm not sure if I can locate it while I'm doing this. What I'm showing you now is Sweetie Bird's third nest of 2010. And she'd built that right beside our house. In fact, I was on my balcony doing this. And oops, you can see my yard a little bit there. Here she is a few days later. And when Sweetie Bird disappeared, and I'm going to use that as a euphemism, I decided that I wanted to find other hummingbird nests, but there wasn't any in my yard at that point. So I decided to go out into the woods and see if I could find one, and I was able to, surprisingly. And I was able to find a new, a nice hummingbird nest near the little patch of forest where I live. This is the first time I found it. And you can see how camouflaged they are. Now, one thing that makes it easier to find birds, and this is just something that I found recently, and I'm going to show you an example. Is a thermal camera. Here I am watching a hummingbird using a thermal camera, and another hummingbird comes along. And you can see those little red dots. They're just doing what I think is a little mating dance, because those movements are not aggressive. They're more moving with each other, and they're just doing a little bit of dancing in the forest. But this kind of behavior or this kind of footage can only be done with a thermal camera because you can't see them in the daytime with all the obstructions around. So I've recently got this thermal camera, and now if you are excited about thermal cameras, you can probably go out and find some, but I will be selling some on my website in a few months, or sorry, in a few weeks when it gets all the details get figured out. And one thing that that does as well is it opens up nighttime for filming birds, because you can go out in the nighttime and you will find where birds sleep, which is kind of interesting. And this kind of activity is really what I would say solidified my theories about hummingbird territories and where they live. I can go back to the same spot every night, and that hummingbird is very close to the same place in that tree. I have an area where I take my dog in the mornings and I scope the trees, and the hummingbirds are sleeping on the same branches in the same place. So that's really a fun thing to do. So I think Greg, I think I'm probably near my time, am I? I don't hear you, but I will take it from.
Well, if we've got 15 more minutes, if you want to open
Okay,
up to,
Oh,
if you have
honey.
anything else you want to show us, that would be okay. If you want to
sure.
open up to more questions, that's okay too.
Okay, I'm going to show you this little video here just of Sugar teaching her chicks to fly, because this is kind of fun. This sort of goes to the way they learn by behavior. And these chicks are ready to fly, and they're hanging out a little bit too long, but you know, they've got the gravy train going with mom every 15 or 20 minutes, and mom's getting tired of it. So after she feeds the chicks, she's going to teach them, give them a little flying lesson. And this is something that I see all the mothers do. When they get close to fledging, they start coming around and they'll start to urge the little chick out, maybe make it a little harder to feed. They'll hover around them, just show them what flying looks like so that the chick starts to get excited about that. And when it comes to feeding, here's an example of mother showing the chick how to feed. Mom comes in, chick's ready to eat, gets a little bit of food, and now mom goes and feeds it a flower. And the chick watches. And that's how chicks learn. Okay, anybody has questions? I'm happy to answer them.
It's mute. Hello, Eric.
Yeah,
I got a question. I'm interested in nesting as well, and I was wondering in our area here how we can encourage, uh, the hummingbirds to nest in our yard. Now, we've got hummingbird feeders, and they're coming all the time, but I've never seen them in a nest, and I'm interested in that.
right. So there's a few ways to make it a little bit easier for the birds to nest in your yard. One is to get some nesting material. You guys probably have cattails in that area. So I would get some cattails, put them up around the yard. And you can also get raw cotton that bird stores will sell, like Wild Birds Unlimited sells cotton. So those are raw cotton is a great thing for the hummingbirds to use. But when you get these out there, you have to make sure that you actually get the um, start to prime the cotton or the cattail. Give it a bit of a poke so that you get the start to get the fibers out because they're not very strong birds. They only weigh 4 grams, and if they're trying to pull something apart, what is easy for us is very difficult for them. So pull a few cattail seeds out, pull out some of the fluff of the raw cotton, and hang it, about head level somewhere around the yard where they can see it. So that's one thing to do. The other thing is kind of important. You shouldn't feed other birds in your yard
Oh.
because those other birds are going to scare away any hummingbird from putting their nest there because
Mhm.
those other birds are all there to eat. And if they find their chicks in the yard, they're going to eat their chicks. So hummingbirds won't nest around another type of bird feeder. They will around hummingbird feeders, but not if you have nuts and things like that for, say, cardinals or for whatever other kind of birds are in your area there for robins and that kind of stuff.
Well,
Uh,
that's understandable because I've got about 10 or 12 other bird feeders in the yard.
yeah,
So
well, there you go. So
yeah, that must make this, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Windows 35.
Well, when would you say that we should put out the hummingbird feeders in the springtime? And also when we seem to remove them around the beginning of October when we don't see the hummingbirds anymore. But I was wondering about how soon to take them out.
Right. So the hummingbirds in my area stay all year, so I do it all year. In your area, you're going to have the migratory, probably ruby-throated in your area, and they are going to be seasonal. So they will probably start to arrive probably later part of March, early part of April.
Oh,
So there are websites, if you Google hummingbird migration, you'll find people that are using maps to show them to show where the hummingbirds are. So, it's all citizen science. So it'll be somebody in Louisiana might say, oh, the hummingbirds are coming back. So then it'll alert people in that area. But typically it's going to be late March, early May.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to play it. Well, you can keep asking questions, but I'm going to play this little video of Hatter, which is a chick that was just that hatched. Oops, I think I'm going to play it. Hatter's maybe this is not that video. No, it's not. Oh, there we go. It wasn't playing correctly. Sorry. There we go. This is a video of a hummingbird, another one of those fights that happen. And this is its younger sibling again attacking the bird. But what you're going to see here is kind of fun because mom decides that she doesn't like her kids fighting. And this was fairly aggressive. The nest is only about a foot away. They won't attack the chick when it's in the nest, but as soon as they get out of the as soon as they get out of the nest, it's fair game. This was almost painful to watch. I was surprised it was going on so long. Usually one of them gives up by now. But there's mom. making sure that the kids stop fighting.
So, Eric, this is Greg.
Yep.
In response to Russ's question, I've put in the chat a link to a website called Hummingbird Central. And I think in the spring, Russ, you can start watching that maybe several weeks before Eric mentioned when you should start looking in your yard. And this is a map that is updated, like Eric was saying, to show you the approach of the springtime migrating ruby-throated hummingbirds.
Yep. Yeah. So another thing that occurs sometimes is a nest thief. This is another hummingbird that's building a nest, and he decided that he wanted that nest. So it came around and picked away at one bird's nest to get material. And the material that it's getting there, that's the kind of cotton that I put out. So it's probably from my yard, from the cotton in my yard. Didn't touch the chicks at all, but the chicks thought it was mother coming to feed them, which is why their beaks are all out.
Now, Eric, we see, oh, wait a minute.
Yep.
Okay, when you were talking about the nest robber, we could see a video screen, but the video was not running.
Okay, let me put it
And
back here.
at least it wasn't running for me. I can't speak for everyone.
Okay. Can you see
Oh, okay.
that?
Yes, now we can see that.
Yep. Okay. And these chicks are under 10 days old. The eyes open about 10 days. That they would probably be about 4 or 5 days old, those chicks. And here's something that I've done a few times. I just do it for fun. This was kind of an experiment with a bird that I'd been filming. I'd been quite close to it as I was filming it, so it's seen me every day. And then one day I brought out a little feeder, and little guy decided it was okay to sit on my finger and have some food. And the sibling was hanging out behind there. You can see the scruffy feathers on this bird. It's only been out of the nest for a day or two. And those feathers have to get worn out, and the chick will molt and it'll get a fresh new set of feathers. And people often ask me why the hummingbird chicks look the same size as their mother, even when they're only 3 weeks old or 4 weeks old. Well, part of the reason for that is that their feathers are longer when they're chicks. They're longer to compensate for the lack of muscles. It's only a minuscule amount. But remember, these birds only weigh between 3 and 4 grams. So having a little bit longer feather gives it a bit of an advantage at flight, and it just makes it look bigger. So when it gets its new feathers, it actually looks smaller.
Eric, you said that you have there in uh, BC, you have Anna's hummingbirds year round.
Yeah,
Did I understand that correctly?
that's correct.
So, so do they nest year round, or is there a dormant period where they're not nesting?
Well, I've filmed a hummingbird nest in every month of the year except August.
No.
And I don't know why August. Maybe it's just too hot. But I've, I follow so many a year, anywhere from about 5 to 10 in a year. And August has always eluded me. I don't know why. Maybe when I get out there with the thermal camera, I only got the thermal camera a few months ago, and it makes things a lot easier to find. So maybe I'll be able to find a hummingbird in August once I start using that for nest finding. This just shows you, I'm just putting up a shot of the tape measure and a nest, and it just shows you how small that nest is. I mean, that nest isn't complete, but it's about an inch tall. It's very small. And this is a set of chicks I was following for quite a while. This is Fluff's third uh, nest, and this Bewick's wren decided that it didn't really like the chicks. So it backs up and just knocks him out of the nest. But these chicks were okay. I was able to get on site down from where I was filming this and find the chicks, and they did quite well. So it didn't kill them or anything like that. Are there any other questions out there?
Eric, this is Martha. I'll just say that yeah, I appreciate the one video that you had where you showed your finger up to uh, the shell of the
Sure.
broken
Yeah.
one nest that had fallen. Because as we watch these videos, it's very easy to get caught up in like they just look like regular sized birds. So that
Yeah.
it was a pretty incredible, like the film work that you've done to be able to show this level of detail. Because then when your finger showed up next to that shell, it was just I can't. It's mind blowing to think that they are that
Yeah.
small. So yeah,
Well, that,
incredible work.
thank you. Yeah. I tend to forget it myself because I see it on the full screen. But what we're looking at here is, virtually 6 inches wide by maybe 4 inches tall. Maybe it's a little bit bigger in this particular case, but the chicks are so small. They're like just your finger size. The times when I've had to help them and um, do something to assist a bird, I'm always struck with the reality of just how small they are. There was one time when I knew that the mother had been killed, so I had to help a bird out. It was literally out of the nest the one day, but I knew the mother had been killed. So I was able to capture the bird and give it some food. It had been sitting in a bush all morning, peeping away. And this was it here. I'm not going to play the whole video because it takes a while, but here we go. The poor little guy. Oops. I had to put a net over the part of the bush that it was in and then clip the bush from underneath. But again, you can see my hand and just how tiny that little bird is compared to my hand.
That nest gets pretty crowded with two. Do you ever see them with more than two?
No, I've never seen him with more than two, other than a couple of photos on the internet. But uh, I've never seen them lay more than two eggs. Yeah, this is really hard to do. But little Barnum did make it, and here he is the next day. I've got him coming back to a feeder in a nearby um, where the nest was, and my whole thing was to introduce him to the balconies in this particular apartment building where they have feeders. This was right in front of an apartment building that has probably 100 apartments in it, and little Barnum um, had to figure out how to take care of things. And then after a few days of making sure that he knew where things were, I found him sleeping at a feeder. And he did okay after that. He'd figured out where he could get food, and the people in the apartment building made sure that they took care of him. He was only about 4 days out of the nest at this point. You have any other questions? Are there anybody want to pick a subject on hummingbirds, and I'll see if I've got a video on it. How about banding? Don't often think of banding, but it's important that some birds get tagged so that we were able to figure out things about them. And this is a little hummingbird getting tagged at one of our bird stations here. I'm going to measure the beak. I'll just speed it up a little bit. Measure the bird. 5 centimeters, whatever that was. Now they do this, they blow on the belly to see if the bird is incubating eggs. This little area that they're exposing there, yeah, it probably is incubating. They lose their feathers. It's called the brood patch, and they use that to heat up the eggs. They sort of keep them within their feathers against their skin. See if I can find the part where she bends it. There we go. 3.55 grams or something like that. So as you know, outreach is really important for birding endeavors because we need everybody to take care of birds. Birds are not going to make it without a little bit of human help because of all the destruction that occurs and all the hazards that we put in their way. So it's always a good idea to teach people how to best take care of birds and to be careful with them and their environment. And to elaborate on a little bit about that, one of the things that I'm doing now is doing a bird survey of birds in the old growth on Vancouver Island. So we are going up to the old growth areas and we're making sure that we can find the birds using the thermal cameras and bird pucks that we get to identify the birds. And then making sure that we understand what birds are there and how the logging affects them. For those of you who don't know, Vancouver Island is currently only has a little bit of old growth left, and those conservationists in the area are going kind of crazy because we've been asking for it to be saved for 45 years, and the government said they're going to save it for 45 years, but we're down to an area of less than 200 square kilometers out of 30,000 kilometers. So it's a little bit disappointing. So we're trying to make sure that we understand what birds are there, and we're trying to use their nesting behavior to preserve that ecosystem that we've got. The ancient forest on Vancouver Island has never, some of it's never been logged, and the part that hasn't been logged is precious. Like I say, there's less than 200 square kilometers, and it's been around since the Ice Age. So that's a unique ecosystem, and we don't even know what's in there. So that's why it's important that we make sure that we take good care of the forest and take care of the birds. Here's another video of hollyberry and bush. This is probably going to make you a little bit queasy. You can see on their beaks they're infested with mites. This particular nest was about 3 feet off the ground, and they ended up having a big mite infestation. So it was pretty difficult to watch them. And despite what I tried to, I asked people how I could maybe alleviate this, and there really wasn't any way to stop the mites. The only way to stop it was when they fledged, and I was really happy to see them go, just because of it must have been uncomfortable. But when they fledge and they get away from the nest, then the mites fall off and they no longer have the nest to sit on. And that's where that's where the mites were coming from, was from their nest and from lower down on the ground.
So Eric, the amount of knowledge that I have on mites would probably fit on half of a mite. But I'm wondering, are these mites feeding on blood from these birds, or are they feeding on maybe just feathers? What were the mites all about?
Well, I was told that they do actually eat the blood of the birds and it can kill the birds. However, in this particular case, it didn't. They were able to get out of the nest in time, but I have seen mites kill a Rufous hummingbird baby. I showed you earlier the Rufous hummingbird that that I filmed there and she had two nests. She had one nest that I filmed and she got one chick out of it. And about 50 feet away, she made her next nest and that one didn't make it. They got mites quite early on, and before the chicks had their full um, feather protection, those mites had killed the chick. So it can happen, absolutely. Yeah.
Some years ago, I maintained a purple martin house,
Oh yeah.
and that was something that we always checked in our nest boxes, was for mite infestations.
Yeah.
And my reading about how to control those kinds of mite infestations had you spread diatomaceous earth in those nest boxes,
Uh-huh.
and that diatomaceous earth would be an abrasive to the mites, but it didn't harm the nestlings at all. But I don't know how you could really do that in a hummingbird nest, but that's just a
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah. I consulted with a couple of university professors who are knowledgeable about hummingbirds, and they couldn't recommend anything to me that would be that wouldn't be potentially harmful to the birds. So in those situations, my go-to is let nature take its course. And it's hard to do, but sometimes when you're filming things and making documentaries, it's not always about how pretty things are. Sometimes it's just about the real world life.
Sure.
Yeah. This is another bird in my backyard, and this is one of the birds featured in my film. And this is the first time it flapped its wings. I
Yeah.
was lucky enough to catch it in slow motion. It's one of those things that these birds do that is ingrained in them. They don't necessarily have they don't have any instruction book. Things just happen. And one of the things that they do right from the beginning is they poop outside the nest. Just looking for that one. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to show you that, but this is some of the cotton that these birds use. You can see one of the birds picking away at it there. A little bit rough video, but and then it goes off to build its nest. Are there any more suggestions for what you'd like to see or hear about? I can't hear anybody if you're there. Are you there, Greg?
Well, I'm here. I was just getting ready to say that the officers of the club just concluded an emergency leadership meeting, and we've decided to fine any members that didn't ask a question during this program. So I just wanted everybody to know that.
Oh, there you go. Let's see, I've got. Okay. Actually, I'm going to show you some of fly catching. This is a hummingbird catching flies. So sometimes you'll see that behavior where they're just going from spot to spot, and she's picking up little flies as she hits the end of her little flight. She'll probably catch 5 or 6 or 8 to 10 flies and bring them back to the nest and feed her chicks. She's only 10 feet away from the nest, and often they will try to perform this in front of their chicks so that their chicks get to see it. And that's the kind of thing that these chicks learn from, is watching their mothers do these activities that become daily things for them.
So you mentioned socialization. Um, is this mother, does she get any help? Is she from the father or any of the neighboring nest, or is it all just basically solo for her? She a single
Well,
parent?
pretty much. The father, the only time I've seen the father visit the nest was uh, I just saw it about 2 years ago. The father came and sat by the nest, and then while the mother was on the eggs, and then went away. And it's very unusual to see that. The um, I believe that the father has several mates in the area. They do their territory, and the females come in and they'll mate with them, and then they make a nest, and then they have eggs. Actually, it sort of goes the other way. They make their nest, they get ready to have eggs, they mate, then they lay their eggs. And I, one of the big coincidences that kept happening by watching the hummingbirds is that I noticed that often when I'm watching 4 or 5 nests, they might all hatch at the same time or very close to the same timing. And that was a mystery to me as to why that would happen. But this last year, we had a particularly bad 3 or 4 weeks where we hardly got any sunlight. It was just raining and miserable. And when we did get sunlight, I went out into the forest to watch and see what the birds are doing. And the male was doing a mating dive. And if you don't know about the hummingbird mating dive, I'll tell you quickly about it. The male hummingbird takes a power dive from high up in the air, and he does a quick pull out near where the female is sitting in a tree. So he makes a chirp, and it actually happens with his tail feathers. And the I think I can show you here. I'm going to turn the sound on, but there's a bit of squealing from excited people.
Hi, Florida.
Yeah.
Oh wow, we got it. Well, he was showing off to her because that goes.
That's right.
Gorgeous goes into the sunshine.
You hear the sound?
Is he? Fast.
He just dived.
So fast.
I think he's diving her.
There he is.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, look how high he is. Oh, wow. That is so cool.
So
See him when he's up there, my eyesight.
Right, yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa. He's not there. Oh,
So that's the sound that they make. And when I was watching this hummingbird do that, I was able to actually see the two hummingbirds fly off together. When they do a mating dive, they are always diving towards the sun. So they'll put the female between the male puts the female between the sun and himself so that when he dives, his feathers flash. And I guess that's a big turn on for the females. So he'll dive and do the chirp and the flash, and then that's the magic sauce they need. And then they get all excited and go off and do a little bit of a mating dance and do what they do. So I saw that with one bird, and then about 20 minutes later, in another area of the forest, but still this fellow's territory, he started doing it with another bird. So they mated. He mated probably 3 or 4 times on the same day. And that's why the birds hatch and have similar cycles, because it's a lot is weather dependent. If it's a sunny day, they're going to do more mating dances because they're going to get flashier, flashier results with the sun out than they will on a cloudy day. So there's a little bit of trivia for you.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Are there any other questions or anything you want to know about?
Well, Eric, we've certainly appreciated the extra time you spent with us. I hope we didn't overwhelm you with all of our questions.
No, I love this. This is I could go on. I literally have 10,000 hours of film, so I could go on forever. But I don't think that we can do that, probably because you'll get tired and go to sleep.
Okay. All right. Well, last chance for questions. Going. Eric, thank you so very much
You betcha.
for
I'm just
sharing this fascinating footage and your very interesting narrative. This has been good stuff.
good. So this is I've just put it. The last video I put up there, I just found it again, was this little bird pooping out of the nest there. But what's really interesting is they will do that from day one. They will poop outside the nest, and it's always heartening to see that the biological brain is working the way it's supposed to be. But they
Sure.
literally will stand on their head to poop outside the nest. Okay, well, with that, I will turn it back over to you, Greg, and thank you all very much for showing up and for enjoying the talk. And well, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
I know I did. Martha, back
Yes,
to
very
you.
much so. Thank you, Eric. This was
Good.
incredible.
Thank you.
And the recording, Greg, we do have a YouTube site for the Audubon Society and
Oh, good.
often post there. Is that something that we can do with this?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Thank you, Eric. I will.
You bet.
I'll figure out how that all works and
Mm-hmm.
report back.
Cool.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a good evening.